The stars stretched endlessly across the dark canvas of space, each one a pinprick of light in the vast emptiness. Captain Elias Mercer guided his ship, the Aurora Dawn, through the Andromeda sector, the engines humming softly. Humans had come far in the last few centuries, colonizing distant star systems, exploring uncharted planets, and encountering civilizations that were as strange as they were fascinating. But the loneliness of space never left him. Even in a ship filled with equipment and artificial companions, he felt the weight of solitude pressing against his chest like gravity. He had been surveying a recently discovered planetary system, mapping asteroid belts and noting the orbits of planets that shimmered with ice and gas. It was routine work, yet something in the readings of his sensors made him pause. A massive energy spike, unlike any natural phenomenon he had ever recorded, appeared on the outer edge of the system. It pulsed with a soft, almost melodic rhythm, a sound that seemed to whisper directly to his mind. Curious, he altered course, descending toward the source with caution. As he entered the atmosphere of the planet, Elias saw it, a spacecraft unlike anything built by humans, had crash-landed in a valley of jagged rock formations. Smoke rose from its damaged hull, and the hull plating was torn open as if the metal itself had been ripped apart by an invisible hand. His heart tightened. Whoever was inside could be alive, or they could already be lost. Elias guided the Aurora Dawn to a safe landing nearby and donned his exploration suit. The moment he stepped onto the planet's surface, the air was dense, tinged with the metallic scent of ionized particles. The ground beneath his boots felt oddly soft, almost like a combination of soil and something organic. He moved carefully, scanning for hazards, until he reached the wreckage. Inside the ship, the scene was chaotic. Debris floated in zero-gravity sections. Broken screens flickered, and a faint greenish glow illuminated the interior. Amid the wreckage, Elias spotted a figure. She lay on a fragment of the floor, her body still and fragile. Her skin glowed faintly, shifting in patterns of blue and violet like liquid light trapped under a thin membrane. Elias could see the faint rise and fall of her chest. She was alive, barely. "She's alive," he whispered to himself. He knelt beside her, careful not to worsen her injuries. Her face was delicate, framed by translucent hair that floated around her head like tendrils of light. Her eyes opened slowly, revealing deep star-like irises that seemed to hold entire galaxies within them. I am Princess Lyra," she whispered, her voice trembling but musical, carrying a resonance that felt almost physical in its beauty. "My people, they are in danger." Elias scanned her body, checking for injuries. She was bleeding, though not in a way he immediately understood. The wound in her side was small but deep, and her species' physiology was unlike anything he had studied. Her vital signs were unstable. Human medicine might not work on her. He swallowed hard, knowing he would have to make a choice that could cost him everything. "I'm Captain Elias Mercer," he said gently. "I'm going to help you. Can you tell me what happened?" Lyra's lips trembled. "We were attacked. The warlords, they want our planet. They will not stop." She coughed, and a faint glow around her chest dimmed with each exhale. "If I die, my people will suffer." Elias felt a surge of determination. Humans had survived impossible odds, faced dangers that would have destroyed lesser species, and somehow endured. He would not let this princess die if he could help it. He activated the medbay equipment he carried and began scanning her physiology. It was complicated. Her cells were vastly different, adapted to an energy source he did not fully understand. The readings fluctuated wildly, and every time he adjusted the healing protocols, her body rejected it. Then he realized what he had to do. It was risky, maybe even fatal for him, but there was no other option. He would use a human biotransfer technique, something designed to temporarily share blood and energy between a human and a compatible organism. In theory, it could stabilize her heart and keep her alive. In practice, it could weaken him, maybe permanently. "I have to warn you," Elias said, his voice steady even as his hands trembled slightly. "This procedure, it could be dangerous for me. But it's the only way to save you." Lyra's gaze met his, unwavering. "I trust you." "Humans are brave," he began. The procedure was delicate. He inserted the transfer device, allowing a controlled flow of his blood into her system. Immediately, he felt a burning sensation in his veins, as if the life force within him was being stretched thin. Lyra's body convulsed slightly, her bioluminescence flickering as her energy adapted to his human blood. Minutes passed like hours. Outside, the planet's skies darkened as storm clouds gathered, reacting to the energy emitted by the wounded ship. Ilias ignored it. His focus was absolute. Slowly, Lyra's vital signs stabilized. Her chest rose and fell more evenly, her color returning to the glowing patterns that indicated life. But the relief was short-lived. The sensors on the Aurora Dawn screamed an alert. Incoming vessels. Through the planet's thin atmosphere, Elias saw them. Drones, sleek and black, their designs clearly militaristic, firing energy pulses toward the surface. They were sent by the warlords Lyra had mentioned, determined to capture or kill her. Elias acted without hesitation. He grabbed his plasma rifle, moving toward the exterior of the ship to intercept the attackers. Lyra, now able to sit up with difficulty, watched him, her eyes wide with fear and gratitude. You are risking everything," she said. "Humans survive by fighting when it matters," Elias replied, his voice firm. "And I won't let them take you." The drones fired relentlessly. Elias used the jagged rocks for cover, returning fire with precision honed from years in space combat. Despite their advanced design, the drones struggled to match his improvisation and unpredictability. He moved with a combination of skill and instinct, drawing on humanity's centuries-long experience of facing impossible odds. Lyra's gaze followed him, awestruck. In her culture, bravery was measured differently, often tied to rituals and command, not spontaneous self-sacrifice. Here was a human risking his life for someone he had just met, a being from a completely different species. It was extraordinary. As he fought, he noticed the drones attempting to flank the ship, aiming to breach it and capture Lyra. He had no choice. He had to lure them away. Using a combination of decoys and energy bursts from the ship, he drew the attackers into a canyon. There he set a trap using the planet's natural terrain and some improvised explosives from the ship's cargo. The explosion rocked the canyon, sending drones tumbling and scattering their formation. Elias emerged from the smoke, exhausted, blood weak from the procedure but alive. He staggered back to Lyra's side, collapsing briefly but refusing to let despair take hold. You saved me," Lyra said, her voice trembling with emotion. "Your blood, it flows in me now. I cannot explain how much it means," Elias smiled weakly. "We humans, we adapt. We survive. And sometimes, we help others survive too." Lyra reached out, her hand brushing against his. The contact was electric, not in pain, but in the connection of two beings who understood courage and sacrifice. "I will never forget this," she said. "The universe will never forget you." Elias looked out at the horizon. The warlord's drones were scattered, but he knew this was only the beginning. Lyra's enemies would not stop until she and her people were under their control. But for the first time he felt a strange hope. Humans were not just survivors. They were heroes, capable of acts that transcended species and worlds. Together, they returned to the ship. Lyra rested in the medbay while Elias monitored the planet for any further threats. Outside, the sky glowed with the aftermath of the canyon explosion, streaks of energy illuminating the clouds like distant auroras. He thought about how fragile life could be, yet how powerful the act of saving it was. By the time the Aurora Dawn lifted off from the planet, Elias had made a silent vow. He would protect her, guide her, and, if necessary, give everything he had to ensure her survival. Humanity had a long history of sacrifice for others, and he was proud to continue that legacy among the stars. As they left the planet behind, drifting toward the endless night of space, Elias felt the weight of the universe on his shoulders, and yet, within that weight, a spark of something extraordinary: hope, courage, and the promise that even in the darkest reaches of space, humans could shine like stars. And somewhere deep in the corridors of time and space, the universe began to take notice. The Aurora Dawn glided silently through the black expanse of space, its engines barely a whisper against the infinite backdrop of stars. Inside, the air was tense yet calm. Captain Elias Mercer sat in the pilot's chair, monitoring the ship's sensors. Princess Lyra lay in the medbay, her body stabilized but still fragile. The bioluminescent glow of her skin pulsed softly, a rhythmic dance that echoed the slow beat of her recovering heart. Elias studied her carefully. Though the procedure had saved her, it had left him weak, his blood depleted and his strength waning. Yet he refused to give in to fatigue. "They will follow us," Lyra whispered, her voice soft but determined. "The warlords, they will not give up." Elias nodded, understanding the gravity of her words. The fleet that had attacked her planet was relentless, trained to pursue their targets across light years without pause. But humans were known for their ingenuity and adaptability. He had survived countless missions in dangerous territory, and he intended to survive this one as well. He activated the ship's stealth systems, engaging energy fields that rendered the Aurora Dawn almost invisible to standard sensors. The ship's hull shimmered faintly, blending with the stars around them. For now they were safe. But safety was temporary, and Elias knew that a confrontation was inevitable. Lyra watched him silently, studying the lines of his face, the set of his jaw, the way he moved even while weakened. She had never encountered a human who would risk his life so completely for another being. In her culture, acts of heroism were often ceremonial, performed under the scrutiny of witnesses, yet here was a human acting with no expectation of reward, driven solely by a sense of duty and compassion. "Captain," she said, finally breaking the silence. "Why? Why did you do it? You barely knew me and yet—" Her voice faltered. Elias turned to her, forcing a small, tired smile. "Humans, we've learned that life is precious no matter whose it is. Sometimes, helping others is the only thing that gives meaning to our existence." Lyra's eyes shimmered with gratitude. I will not forget this. You have given me a second chance, my people. They will owe you more than I can ever say." He shook his head gently. "It's not about debt. It's about survival. And courage. Sometimes that's all we have to give." Their moment of reflection was interrupted by an alert. Sensors detected movement on the edge of their stealth field. A small fleet of warlord drones had tracked them. Elias swore under his breath. They had been detected despite their best efforts. "We'll have to fight," he said, rising to his feet despite the dizziness from his weakened state. "But we can't let them reach Lyra or her planet. Not while I'm alive." Lyra nodded, determination burning in her eyes. "I can help," she said. "I may be weak now, but I know some systems on my ship. I can guide you." Elias allowed her to access the navigation controls. Together they plotted a course toward a nearby nebula, a dense field of gas and debris that could hide their ship while giving them a tactical advantage. As the Aurora Dawn entered the nebula, the warlord drones pursued them, firing energy pulses that lit up the surrounding gas clouds. Elias maneuvered skillfully, using the environment to his advantage. He twisted the ship through tight corridors of ice and rock, dodging attacks while keeping Lyra safe. Even in his weakened state, Elias's combat instincts were sharp. He calculated angles, anticipated enemy movements, and fired back with precise bursts from the ship's weapons. The drones, though numerous and technologically advanced, struggled to predict his unpredictable maneuvers. Lyra guided him through hidden paths in the nebula, her knowledge of interstellar currents and gravitational anomalies giving them an edge. Hours passed in a blur of motion and strategy. Elias felt the strain in his body intensify. His blood loss from the previous procedure left him pale, and every movement demanded immense effort. Yet he refused to stop. He had made a promise to himself and to Lyra that he would protect her no matter the cost. At one point, a massive drone carrier emerged from the mist, far larger than the others and bristling with weapons. Elias's sensors indicated that it could disable the Aurora Dawn in a single shot. He realized they could not outrun it. They would have to fight, and he knew this battle could be fatal. Lyra looked at him, concern flashing across her face. "Captain, you are too weak. We cannot risk this." Elias shook his head. "I have no choice. If we don't fight, you die, and the warlords win. Humans, we fight when it matters most, even when the odds are against us." The carrier's weapons charged and energy beams shot toward them. Elias executed a daring maneuver, diving the ship into a narrow asteroid field within the nebula. The carrier's weapons couldn't track them effectively in such tight space, giving the Aurora Dawn a chance to strike. Using the ship's cannons, he targeted weak points in the carrier's hull. Each shot precise, each movement calculated. Lyra assisted, recalibrating the ship's energy shields and rerouting power to the weapons. Together they formed a synchronized team, human instinct and alien knowledge blending seamlessly. Slowly, methodically, they damaged the carrier, exploiting its blind spots. But the effort took its toll. Elias felt dizziness creeping in, his vision blurring. Every move required immense effort, and his body threatened to collapse under the strain. Yet he pushed forward, driven by the need to keep Lyra alive. Finally, with a calculated final strike, the carrier erupted in a controlled explosion, debris scattering across the nebula. The remaining drones, now leaderless and disorganized, retreated into the shadows. Elias slumped in his chair, exhausted but alive. Lyra rushed to his side, her hands glowing faintly as she assessed his condition. You risked everything," she whispered, tears forming in her eyes. I cannot thank you enough," Elias smiled weakly. "It's not about thanks. It's about doing what is right. Humans, we survive, but we also protect others when we can. That's who we are." Lyra's gaze softened. "Then you are more than human. You are a hero." Elias shook his head, laughing softly despite his weakness. "I'm just a man, doing what any human would do." The nebula's light shifted, casting a soft glow over the aurora dawn. Outside, the remnants of the destroyed drone carrier drifted like fallen stars. The battle was over, but the war was far from finished. Elias knew the warlords would regroup, that they would send stronger fleets to capture Lyra and conquer her people. Yet for now they had survived. Lyra reached out, her hand brushing against his. "You gave me life, your blood, your strength. I will carry it forward. I will ensure my people are safe because of you." Elias felt a warmth despite the exhaustion coursing through him. Humans had always believed in the power of sacrifice, in the courage to protect others even at great personal cost. Here, in the middle of a distant nebula, that belief had been tested and proven true. Over the following hours, Lyra recovered further under the careful monitoring of the medbay. She shared stories of her home planet, of the civilizations threatened by the warlords, and of the history that had led to her peril. Elias listened, fascinated. Despite her delicate appearance, she radiated a strength and determination that impressed him deeply. As they traveled through the nebula, Elias reflected on humanity's place in the universe. Humans were not the strongest, the fastest, or the most technologically advanced species, but they had courage, ingenuity, and a willingness to act selflessly when it mattered most. That willingness had saved Lyra's life, and it would continue to define their journey. By the time they emerged from the nebula, the Aurora Dawn had regained speed, moving toward a safe sector where they could plan their next steps. Elias, though still weak, felt a sense of purpose rekindled. He had protected Lyra, fought off overwhelming odds, and survived. The universe had witnessed human bravery once again. Lyra turned to him, her eyes shining with newfound determination. "Captain, the warlords will not stop. My people need allies. We must act quickly if we are to save them." Elias nodded, understanding the challenge ahead. "Then we fight. We protect your people, and we show the universe what humans can do. One act of courage can inspire countless others. That is our power." Together they set a course toward Lyra's home system, aware of the dangers that awaited but confident in their ability to face them. The bond between human and alien had been forged in fire and blood, and it would guide them through the trials ahead. Elias, despite his weakened body, felt a surge of hope. Humanity's courage was not bound by species, by planets, or by the limits of flesh. It was universal, and it could shine even in the darkest corners of space. As the stars stretched endlessly around them, the Aurora Dawn carried its passengers forward. One man, weakened but unbroken, had risked everything for another. One alien princess, saved against impossible odds, would remember his sacrifice. And somewhere in the vast expanse of the universe, that story would begin to spread. A testament to human bravery, ingenuity, and the unyielding spirit of survival. The battle was won, but the war was only beginning. Yet Elias and Lyra, united by courage and determination, would face the future together. Humans had shown the universe that selflessness, ingenuity, and bravery were powers in themselves, powers that no weapon could defeat and no enemy could ignore. The Aurora Dawn moved silently through the dark stretches of space, carrying both human courage and alien hope. Captain Elias Mercer sat in the cockpit, weary but alert as Princess Lyra navigated the ship toward her home system. The planets of her people glimmered in the distance, each one a jewel suspended in the black void. Yet Elias knew the beauty of the stars could not hide the dangers that awaited them. The warlords' fleets would not allow her to return without a fight. Lyra's people, he learned, were scattered across several planets in her system, many of them already under siege. Her homeworld had been attacked first, leaving thousands in desperate need of protection. She explained the urgency in her voice, her eyes bright with determination. Captain, if we do not act now, my people will be enslaved or destroyed. They need a leader, and they need someone willing to fight with them. Elias nodded, his body aching from the strain of the previous battles. He felt the weakness from his earlier blood sacrifice, but he also felt something stronger: resolve. Humanity was defined by its willingness to face impossible odds. He could not fail now. Then we fight, he said simply. Humans survive, but we also protect, and I will not let your people suffer. As they approached Lyra's system, scouts detected incoming warlord ships. The fleet was larger than before, heavily armed and coordinated. Elias analyzed the ship's formations and weapon patterns, quickly devising a plan. He would not charge blindly into battle. Humans were not invincible, but they were clever. Using the Aurora Dawn's advanced stealth systems, he guided Lyra to a hidden asteroid field near the outer planets. Here, they could set a trap. Lyra assisted, manipulating her knowledge of local space currents to create a perfect ambush. When the warlord fleet entered the asteroid field, the human ingenuity of Elias combined with Lyra's alien insight created chaos for the attackers. Energy beams ricocheted unpredictably off asteroids. Mines were detonated with precise timing, and the fleet struggled to maintain formation. Even in his weakened state, Elias piloted with skill honed over decades of missions. Every movement was calculated, every maneuver deliberate. He drew upon humanity's history of overcoming overwhelming odds, knowing that strategy and courage could triumph where strength alone could not. Despite their success in the ambush, the warlord fleet was resilient. Reinforcements arrived, and Elias realized that a direct confrontation was inevitable. Lyra's ship carried civilians and injured soldiers from her people, and they could not risk losing them. The battle would have to be fought on her homeworld itself. When they entered orbit around Lyra's planet, the devastation became clear. Cities were in ruins, defensive systems destroyed, and the warlord's forces were entrenched. Elias knew that a frontal assault would be suicidal. He needed a plan that would maximize the element of surprise and minimize casualties. Lyra turned to him, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and trust. Captain, what do we do? I cannot ask you to risk yourself again. Elias met her gaze, determination burning in his eyes. We will do what humans do best. We fight smart, we fight together, and we fight for what is right. I will risk everything to save your people because courage is stronger than any weapon. They coordinated with the remaining loyal forces of Lyra's people. Using the Aurora Dawn as a mobile command center, Elias directed strategic strikes against key warlord installations. The goal was not to destroy the entire fleet, impossible, but to create openings, weaken defenses, and give civilians a chance to escape. The first strike hit a weapons depot near the planet's capital. Explosions rocked the surface, sending shockwaves through the warlord lines. Elias maneuvered the ship closer to the planet, guiding Lyra in precision strikes that targeted communication arrays and supply chains. Each victory was small but significant, weakening the warlord's hold. But the battle was taking its toll. Elias's strength was failing. His body, already compromised by the blood procedure, was pushed to its limits. Every breath was a struggle, every movement a reminder of the sacrifice he had made. Yet he pressed on, knowing that stopping would mean the death of countless innocent lives. Lyra watched him, her respect and admiration growing with each passing moment. She had faced war before, but never had she seen such determination, such selfless bravery. Humans were fragile, yet their courage made them formidable in ways no technology could match. As the warlords regrouped for a final assault, Elias realized that the only way to secure victory was to confront the enemy commander directly. The warlord leader controlled a massive orbital platform that coordinated the attacks and deployed reinforcements. Destroying it would cripple the fleet, but the approach would be perilous. I will do it, Elias said, his voice firm despite weakness. If we take out the command center, the rest will fall apart. But I cannot survive the assault. Lyra's eyes widened. Captain, no. You cannot. I have to. He interrupted gently. This is human courage, Lyra. Sometimes survival requires sacrifice. I cannot ask your people to fight if I do not lead by example. She reached out, holding his hand. Then I will stand with you. We will face this together. Together, they piloted the Aurora Dawn toward the orbital platform. The warlord defenses reacted immediately, firing volleys of energy that lit up the void. Elias maneuvered with precision, dodging each blast while guiding Lyra to target weak points. Civilians and soldiers watched from safe zones on the planet, inspired by the bravery displayed in orbit. As they closed in, Elias realized that a direct collision with the platform, combined with a focused energy strike from the ship's weapons, could destroy it. But the risk was immense. The explosion would almost certainly be fatal to anyone aboard. Lyra turned to him, her voice trembling. "Captain, no, there has to be another way." Elias shook his head, calm despite the danger. "No other way will save them all. Humans, we face the impossible when it matters most. I have fought my entire life for moments like this." With a nod from Lyra, they executed the plan. The Aurora Dawn accelerated toward the platform, weaving through defensive fire. Elias calculated each move with precision, ensuring Lyra could maintain control of the ship's weapon systems. The ship collided with the platform's weak points, triggering a chain reaction of explosions. The force of the blasts threw the Aurora Dawn into a turbulent orbit. Alarms blared, warning of structural damage and critical systems failure. Elias gritted his teeth, using the last of his strength to stabilize the ship long enough to give Lyra a chance to escape. "Go," he shouted, his voice echoing over the ship's intercom. "Take the civilians! Save them!" Lyra hesitated, but she knew he was right. Using the ship's emergency warp drive, she jettisoned the escape pods, sending the survivors safely toward the planet. She turned back to Elias, tears streaming down her face. I cannot leave you." Elias smiled faintly, his energy fading. "Lyra, your people will live. That is enough. Humans, we leave our mark not in our survival, but in the lives we save." With a final act of strength, Elias triggered the ship's final charge, directing it to detonate in proximity to the platform. The explosion engulfed the orbital command center in a brilliant light, sending shockwaves through the warlord fleet. Systems failed, ships collided, and the remaining forces retreated in disarray. Lyra, watching from the escape pod, felt a mixture of grief and awe. Elias had given everything, his strength, his safety, even his life force, to ensure the survival of her people. She knew the universe would remember this sacrifice, for it was a testament to human courage, determination, and selflessness. As the debris settled and the warlord fleet scattered, Lyra returned to her people. She helped rebuild, guided by the memory of the human who had risked everything for her and her civilization. Across the planets of her system, survivors told stories of a man who had bled for an alien princess, whose bravery had turned the tide of war and inspired generations. In the months and years that followed, Elias's name became legend. Statues were erected on Lyra's homeworld, and stories of his courage spread across neighboring systems. Humans were no longer merely explorers or survivors. They were heroes, capable of acts that transcended species, planets, and boundaries. Lyra often gazed at the stars, feeling a connection to the human who had shown her the meaning of true courage. "The universe will never forget him," she whispered. "He sacrificed everything so that life could continue, so that hope could endure. Humans, they are extraordinary." And somewhere in the vast reaches of space, that story of bravery and sacrifice traveled from planet to planet, inspiring others to act with courage and selflessness. The legacy of Elias Mercer was immortal, not because he survived, but because he had shown the universe the heights of human valor, the strength of humanity's heart, and the power of selfless action. In the end, it was not the warships, the weapons, or the technology that shaped the galaxy. It was the human spirit. And Elias, through his ultimate sacrifice, had ensured that spirit would shine across the stars for generations to come. The universe, vast and indifferent, had met humanity, and it had learned that when humans gave their all for others, no force could ever erase their impact. Elias Mercer's courage, his selflessness, and his unwavering dedication had become legend, a story whispered across worlds, a symbol of hope, and proof that humanity at its best could change the course of history itself.